So my name's Phil Mitchell, and I've been working as a therapist for about 15 and a half years, predominantly working with boys and men who've experienced sexual abuse, exploitation, other forms of sexual abuse, either as children, as adults, or as both. I deliver a lot of training on various aspects of the sexual abuse and exploitation of boys and young men, which includes how we can identify more boys, gender-biased practice, techniques that work with boys and young men, and I've developed and contribute to various strategies and initiatives to tackle the sexual abuse and exploitation of boys and men. We also need to perhaps adapt our practice to make sure that we are not trying to fit boys and men into an approach that generally works more effectively with girls and women. As I said earlier on, that approach of talk, open up, express your feelings, yes, of course it will work for some boys and men, of course it will, but we shouldn't assume that it will always work. And one of the problems I often encounter are trainee practitioners who are just saying, he won't talk, he won't open up, he won't tell me how he feels. Like, right, stop trying then. Try a different approach. Yeah, but that's not counselling, is it? Yes, it is. There are different types of counselling. And I think that's maybe what we need to do. I think the other thing as well is we need to be vocal. We absolutely need to be vocal. The sexual abuse and exploitation of boys and men is bathed in misconceptions. There are, on Twitter, for example, I've seen boys and men share their experiences of rape, childhood abuse, and so on, and I have seen them be attacked. I've seen some being accused of taking resources away from girls and women who are going through the abuse. I often say, let's understand the similarities and the differences without making it a competition. But a lot of boys and men who disclose abuse, if they're lucky enough to recognise that they are being abused, which many of them don't, they're stigmatised. They experience prejudice. They experience discrimination. They get a lot of hate and misandry. Again, I'm not saying girls and women don't experience similar problems when they disclose, but in my experience, what I see is that we're encouraging more girls and women to disclose and get help and support than we are with boys and men. And actually, when girls and women get hate thrown at them, there are many more people standing up for that going, no, and there aren't as many people standing up for the boys and men that get that abuse. I've seen boys and men online being called wimps, being called weak, because they allowed their partner, male or female, to abuse them. Weak because they didn't leave. Not real men because they didn't hit back. You're probably gay if you got an erection. So on and so on and so on. And again, as I've said, I'm not saying girls and women don't have similar issues, but there are specific issues that do relate to boys and men and the barriers that they experience. So first of all, they have to recognise that they're being abused. If they're being abused by a woman, they might not. They might actually think, well, I'm a man, I deserve to be abused. Or actually, if a man is being hit, it's not really abuse. All you need to do is watch a soap opera or a documentary. Whenever a woman hits a man, it's put across as in it's fun, acceptable, okay. You don't really see soap operas displaying scenes where men hit women in the same way. And if they do, it's sold as that's unacceptable and needs to stop. It's the man deserved it, okay? So first of all, he's got to recognise that he's been abused or is a victim of abuse. The words victim, abuse can be quite loaded, and so we have to think about language and terminology as well. So even if he recognises that he's been abused, then the next bit is, okay, well, what's he going to do about that? Should he tell someone? Should he not tell someone? Is he going to get a response that's helpful or not? We don't know. There are lots of poor practice out there. I go all over the country and train people on boys and young men and child sexual exploitation. And these people are professionals who are sharing their experiences with me. And at every single training event that I've delivered in the last 2 years, everyone, at least one person on each course, comes up to me and tells me how another professional they know has dismissed the abuse of boys and men, not taken it seriously, laughed at it. A colleague of mine who was based in a police station was talking about a boy that she thought was at risk, and there was a picture of the female who everyone suspected was a perpetrator. Police officers laughed and said she can abuse me whenever she wants, she's all right, etc., etc., etc. Again, how do those attitudes affect practice? So what you have is, you've got, as I've said, you've got the boy / young man who is being abused, but he's got to recognise it. If he recognises it, it's like, well, what will he do? Should he disclose? Should he not disclose? There are arguably reasons for boys and men to not bother. Yeah, perhaps it's fair to say that society is giving abused boys and men the message that you shouldn't disclose, don't disclose, we're not bothered. Yeah, again, maybe people will disagree with that, but that's certainly my experience. So they've got to recognise they've been abused. Then it's like, well, will they disclose? They don't have to disclose. It's completely their choice. Will they get a helpful response? Will they not? When I disclosed to the police that I was raped at age 20, I got told that I was drunk, I needed to go home, I was an inconvenience, I didn't help myself, so on and so on. Again, I know girls and women also get the same response. There are certain responses that abused males have received, such as, well, you should have hit him, why didn't you man up? So again, should they bother disclosing? And if they do disclose, what response are they going to get? What response are they going to get from professionals? Will it be bathed in, old-fashioned views? Will it be bathed in misandry? Will it come from a place of a lack of understanding about boys and men? The amount of people I've heard who have said, well, you got an erection, you must have enjoyed it. No, an erection does not necessarily mean enjoyment or consent at all. And who you disclose to. If you disclose to your best friend, if you disclose to a colleague, could their response then make you think, I'm definitely not going to tell a professional if this is how my friend has disclosed? At one point when I was out with a friend, I was introduced to a colleague, when I explained what I do for a living, I was asked, so have you been abused? I went, yeah, I have actually. And the response was, oh, was he fit? Ha 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 ha. And I find it very difficult to believe that if a woman was to disclose abuse to another woman, that the response would be, oh, was he fit? Ha 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 ha. Yeah. And again, so gender has a part to play. So if we recognise that we've been abused, and then we have to disclose that we've been abused, it's like, well, what support are we going to get around that? So there's barrier after barrier after barrier after barrier for us. And if we find ourselves in a therapist office or in a child sexual exploitation service, and we are being given the message that we matter, that our experience is valid, and that the support is useful for us and it's tailored for us, great. If we are trying to be shoehorned into a service that is predominantly geared towards girls and women, and we are being forced or encouraged, should I say, to engage in therapy in a way that is not working for us as men, and sadly, we are being told explicitly that actually men are the problem here, and we're seeing posters on the wall that have the statistics of how many women and girls report abuse but nothing about men, well, where are we going to go with that? And so ultimately what we have to do is be vocal and challenge this practice and encourage the right sort of practice for boys and men.